Hello, it's Miss Jennings here with Chapter 8 of our Reading for Pleasure book, Trapdoor Mysteries. Tally pushed open the creaky door to the old stables. Right at the back was a box she had brought here days earlier, full of spiders she'd rescued from the rose petals. She'd hoped the spiders remembered her because she needed their help now, but the box was empty. Where were all the spiders? Then she looked up. Hanging from the rafters of the building were hundreds of webs. The magic book had given Tally a phrase to say. She'd practiced it over and over until she knew it perfectly. She shuffled her feet and looked at Squill. Then she pulled back her shoulders and addressed the webs. Spider, spider, my heart is true. Help me learn to do what you do. Tally placed a little bowl on the floor. If all went well, the spiders would fill this with their special spider essence. I hope that works, Tally whispered to Squill. They hid in the shadows of the stables. Before long, the webs began to twitch. A long thin thread twirled from a cobweb just above them. It was a spider dropping down. Tally held her breath and the little spider scampered to the bowl. Moments later, it was gone, back up the thread again to its web. Tally watched in amazement as spider after spider hung down the bowl and climbed back up again. Tally took a nervous step forward and lifted the bowl. It was filled with a silver gel. She crouched down and gently touched it with her finger. It was light but sticky, and she rubbed it between her fingers and thumbs, feeling its stretchiness. Her heart gave a little extra beat of happiness. Thank you, she cried to the spiders. The village bell struck 6, not long till night time. They would set the trap as soon as everyone had gone to bed. Tally felt a bubble of excitement swelling in her tummy, but first there were a few more ingredients to collect. There you are, snapped Mrs. Sneed as Tally appeared in the kitchen. These vegetables need peeling for dinner. Hurry up or you'll never get it done. Then she cut herself a large piece of cake and headed off for a nice sit down. As Tally peeled and chopped, Squill sneaked away some of the celery, potatoes and leeks to use in the magic spider silk recipe. He had made a hiding place under the scullery floor by moving an old stone, and he buried the vegetables quickly, his little paws moving so fast they were a blur. Well done, said Tally. We still need some flour, chicken bones, pasta and some hare. Do you think you can find all that? Squill stood to attention and saluted. Then he scampered off to track everything down. Tally smiled as she watched him. She could hardly remember life without her friend. Late that night, while everyone slept, Tally and Squill heaved a large pot onto the stove. Into it they added leeks, potatoes, celery, hare, pasta, chicken bones and flour. They moved as quietly as possible. Every now and then Squill disappeared down the corridor to check that Mr. Bood was still snoring. Tally stirred and stirred, round and round she mixed, until the stew became gloopier and thicker. Round and round until it began to form long, stringy bits. Round and round until the stringy bits grew thinner and thinner. Finally, Tally added the precious spider essence, and the mix instantly separated out into teeny tiny silver strands. It looked as though Tally had made a pot of angel hair. Tiptoeing, they carried the pot through the kitchen, past the servants' hall and into the tapestry corridor. On the wall, just past the entrance to the ballroom, was the ancient tapestry. Don't worry, she whispered to it. I would never let those burglars steal you. Tally set the pot on the floor. From her pocket, she drew out a tiny hook. The secret recipe had told her how to make it out of a needle, with sugar tongs. Tally lifted one of the cobweb strands and hooked it onto the needle, stretching the thread thinner and thinner until she could barely see it. She climbed onto the stool and stuck a thread on the stone ceiling. There, she said proudly, my first thread. It took Tally and Squill hours to make the web. They tried hard to copy the spider they'd seen in the book, but it was much more difficult than it looked. The pattern of the web was very complicated, and at first Tally kept losing her place and dropping the thin thread. After a while, she got the knack of it, and before long she was moving quickly back and forth, curving the spider silk round and round and looping it over and under. Bit by bit, they built a web. Finally, as the clock struck midnight, they were finished. Tally stood back to look at it. The silk was so thin and light it almost disappeared. Only from one angle did it glint and sparkle in the moonlight. "That's it," cried Tally. "The perfect trap." Now all they had to do was wait.